Howdy. This presentation is going to talk about the multiple choice and short answer questions on the 2015 grade 7 MCAS. So with that being said, let's get right into it. The very first question that we come across is in regards to a carnival. And Andrew here is going to be paying $2 for each ride he goes on, and he goes on 3 rides. Well, I believe that's where our 6 is going to come from. And the next question, each game is going to be costing $2 that he plays, and he plays G games. So 2 times G we really can't do. Right? And this right here, this 6 plus 2G, this whole idea, that's where the expression comes from. The 2 is being multiplied into the 3, and then the second 2 is being multiplied into the G. So we have this 2 that's being multiplied into each piece. Now the final answer to this question, just to come right out and say it, is going to be B. And this is going to be because of the distributive property. If we look at the distributive property, 2 times 3 is going to be 6, and 2 times G is going to be 2G. So we can see how 2 times 3 gives us that 6, and 2 times G gives us that 2G. Next question, we have a multiplication question of 2 fractions. Let's just look at our signs. Our signs here, this would be a negative times a negative. Now before I do anything, I'm just going to remember that our multiplication rules, negative times a negative is a positive. So the moment we discover that we have this positive answer here, look at your answers, we can get rid of the 2 negatives. We can rule them out right away. So now it's just a matter of doing the multiplication. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 6 is 18. And we can simplify this dividing by 2 on top and bottom to 5/9 C. Looking at question number 3. There are 24 boys in a classroom. Half of them are 24 students in a classroom, half are boys. So if we did this 1/2 times 24, whole numbers we place over 1, we get 12. So we know that there are only 12 boys in the classroom. So that's going to rule out our answer of 20 right away. Right? Now the next part says 1/3, and if we do 1/3 of the boys, well, we know that there are 12 boys now. 1/3 of the boys are going to have brown hair. We divide that to get 4. So A was going to be our answer in this case. Question number 4. It's not asking you to answer this, but it's really just saying, hey, which one of these number lines expresses this model that it gives us? So I'm actually going to go ahead and do something here. I'm going to say, hey, a negative plus a negative. We're going to make another negative here. Negative 2.5 plus negative 1 is negative 3.5. Once you know that your answer is going to be 3.5, and frankly, just the fact that we start at a negative 2.5, let's take a look at our number lines. Well, these numbers are in the negative, that seems okay. These numbers are in the negative, that seems okay. But C and D are positive, and there's no way that should even happen. So because we're in the positives, we can get rid of those. And now because we have this negative 3.5, which one of these answers looks like it ends at negative 3.5? Well, A, the final arrow, looks like it's at 3.5. So A is our good answer. Next one up, 7% of art supply budget is going to be spent on colored paper. Well, it says 7% of the art supply budget. Now, the art supply budget is $1,000. So isn't this really 7% of the $1,000? And if we write that out as math here, we have 7% of $1,000. Well, we know that of in math means multiplication. The 1,000 we can just bring straight down as well. And our percent we change into a decimal by moving it 2 places to the left. So this is going to become 0.07. And 7/100 times 1,000, when you do that out, would just come out to be $70. And that would be your answer for this short answer question. Next one up, we see 4 decimal answers, and we have a percent and a fraction. How can we figure out which one of those values goes between 10% and 1/9? Well, we need to make our 2 values up top into decimals. We need to have the same format, all decimals, all fractions, all percents. And frankly, if they're going to give us these decimals over here, why not make 3-digit decimals ourselves? 10%, when we move our decimal over 2 places, we'd get 0.10, but then we have to add in an extra 0 for a placeholder. 1/9 would become 0.111. We can divide that if we need to, right? Just to show that out. A 9 does not go into 1, but 9 goes into 10 one time. And we're just going to continue to have that over and over and over. 9 goes into 10 one time, so on and so forth. So which one of these numbers falls directly between 100 and 111 thousandths? 19 is too low. 151 is definitely way too high. 112 is just out of the range. But C, 108 thousandths is our answer. Next one talks about a survey. Now, the Serene is conducting a survey to find out which sport the students like most. So because we're looking for the students here, that's the key. Why would you care about what the parents at a town meeting think? Why would you care about what teachers think? If you're looking for what sport the students at her school like most, we need to focus on the students. So in this case, C and A are not good answers because it doesn't talk about students. B and D work. However, if you're talking about what sport students like the most, by going to this football game here, of course, they're probably going to like football. So you don't want to have what we call a bias. B-I-A-S. A bias means they have a reason to vote for one thing over another. Students in the cafeteria could like any sport, any music program, any kind of after-school activity. So frankly, students in the cafeteria do not have a bias. D is your answer. Question number 8. You have 140 people in a meeting room. Now this might be one of the more thought-provoking questions. The amount of people in a room. Can it be less than, or does it have to be less than, or does it have to be more than the 140 people? Well, think about max capacity. If a school bus only holds 40 kids, you cannot have over 40 kids. So in this case, we need to have this less than symbol. The amount of people in a room has to be less than 140. So let's get rid of option A and option C, because the amount of tables and people that are at these tables, it cannot be more than 140. So A and C are bad answers. So now, the question is actually saying, which one gives you the greatest number of small tables? Now, small tables are tables that seat 5 people. And right here is the difference. 5T versus that 15T. 5 times how many small tables, plus it looks like one extra large table. B is going to give you your answer. How many small tables can you have? Number 9 is another short answer question. This is actually a mean, median, mode, range. This is a data analysis question, believe it or not. In this case, you have a temperature going from negative 12 degrees in the morning to 7 degrees in the afternoon. Well, isn't the range of something, if I'm not mistaken, high minus low? Well, 7 degrees is your high for the day so far, and negative 12 is your low. So if we do the high of 7 minus the low, which is negative 12, we have to use a 3-word process. So like I tell my students, keep, change, change. And it would be 7 plus 12. So obviously it's going to go from negative 12 up to 0, so it's going to go up that 12, but it's also going to go up 7 more. The answer to this, represented in degrees Fahrenheit, would be 19 degrees Fahrenheit. Next one, number 11. Absolute value is what is being asked about these two bars. Absolute value. So no matter whether I give you $7 or you give me $7, the absolute value of that money is $7. So I like to think of money when it comes to absolute value. Underneath this, let's just put a little reminder here. Absolute value is always positive. So both of these values, the 40 won't change, but both of them we just rewrite as positive amounts. And D, 47, is our answer. It's not opposites. They're always positive when it's absolute value. Plumber charges $12 for 15 minutes of work. So we have two different units here. We have dollars and we have minutes, right? At this rate, what would the plumber charge for 1 hour of work? Well, how much would he charge? That's our unknown amount up top, it looks like here. But 1 hour. Minutes are our units. How many minutes are an hour? It would be 60. Here's our proportion. There are two ways that we could, solve this. You could say, hey, 15 times 4 gives me 60. So 12 times 4 would give me what? And if you do it that way, you would get C. Another way is the cross multiply and divide, more like an equation. If you do 60 times 12 and then divide by 15, you will also get $48 per hour. Number 13, this is probability kind of a question here, right? We see that at the bottom there. It's talking about what's the probability that Sydney will pick a blue hat and a white scarf. Well, how many combinations do we have? If we know that we have 4 hats and we know that we have 2 scarves, a quick little trick to see the total amount of combinations that Sydney would have in this case would be to multiply them together. So we should know that there are 8 total combinations here. How many of those combinations would give us a blue hat and a white scarf? There's only one option there. We could have done blue to green, blue to white, red to green, red to white, tan to green, tan to white, purple to green, purple to white. So, I mean, there are 8 total options. There's only one, though, one out of those 8 that would give us a blue hat with a white scarf. Next one up, we talk about angles. We have 2 obtuse angles. We have 2 that are greater than 90 degrees, right? 1 and 3. And then we also have 2 acute angles, 2 angles that are less than 90 degrees. We don't actually know the amount, what number they are, what the value is, but we can just generalize this. I'm looking down below. Is the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 180 degrees? So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2, does that equal 180? Well, believe it or not, yes. Anytime you have a straight line, that is the key. That is what you're looking for, right? It is what you're looking for. 180 degrees in a straight line. So A is our answer. But just to talk about the other ones, the measure of angle 1 and 3. Angle 1 is obtuse. It's more than 90. Angle 3 is more than 90. Well, if 90 and 90 make 180, 2 angles that are more than 90 must be more than 180. So there's no way that we should be able to get that with 2 obtuse angles. Angle number 2 and angle 3, do they equal 90 degrees? Well, angle 3 alone is more than 90 degrees because it's obtuse. So another reason that we can cross off an answer is because 2 and 3 are more than 90. Angle 2 and 4 might be a little confusing. Angle 4 is acute. Angle 2 is acute. And if you had 45 plus 45, 2 acute angles, that does equal 90, but it doesn't always. And this right here, it must always be true. What if this was a 50-degree angle and this was 50? That would equal 100. So there would be no way to confirm every time that it would be 90. So A is our good answer. That's the best choice. Number 15, a pharmacist. This is a proportion question. And this right here, I like to tell my students to set up a proportion. The moment you see 3 different values and you have one unknown, 1 teaspoon to 5 milliliters, right? How many teaspoons on top? If you know that you have 10 milliliters on bottom here, so teaspoons are on top, milliliters are on bottom. And if we double it on the bottom, let's double it on the top because, you know, ratios, we have to keep everything proportional here. So we're just going to double it to get 2. This is a perimeter question of a rectangle. Now, when we're adding all the sides together, remember that it's this side, and then the 2 blank sides as well. Now, the left and the right, this side is the same as this side, so let's put in there 2.5n. And on the very top, the bottom and the top are the same, so 4n plus 5 also goes on top. And this is a combining like term question. How many n's do we have? Well, 2.5 and 2.5 would be 5. 4 and 4 n's would be 8n. So 5n plus 8n would be 13n. C is our answer here. If you did not do the top and the right and you just added up the 2.5 and the 4, I mean, option A looks good, but it's literally half of what you need. All right, you need to remember that you are adding in all 4 sides. 2.5, 4, 4, and 2.5. And then lastly, you would have the 5 and 5 to make that 10. Surface area, you need to be confident and comfortable using formulas when it comes to a question like this. Let's use this formula and let's rewrite it. It's going to be 4 times pi times the radius squared. Now the whole diameter is 12, so the radius would be half of that. So if our radius is 6, that's the number that we need to use. PEMDAS tells us that we need to do the exponent first. 6 squared, which is 36. Let's bring down the rest of our formula. 4 times pi times 36. Well, we can obviously leave this pi symbol, leave it alone, because it's in every single one of our answers. So we don't need to do that. Let's just do 4 times 36. And if we do that, we're going to get 144 times pi.